Hello, everyone. Happy Earth Day. It's so nice to see everyone here. Hi, Kate. Just while everyone's joining, let me just introduce myself. My name is Matthew Needham. I am the co-founder of Trash Club. And for those of you who don't know, Trash Club is a global network and organization. We're a community of artists and makers and designers all around the world who have conscious practices. We have Trash Talk every 2 weeks within our community. It's where it all began. It's where we started in 2021. And today we've just invited everybody to a very open Trash Talk for Earth Day, to celebrate Earth Day. We've invited some of our friends and members within the network to come and speak and share their work. It's a very sort of informal panel discussion, let's say, just to kind of celebrate the work that we do and to kind of share and see how you can. Thank you. So we have a lineup for you. So we have 7 speakers today. Usually we start a trash talk with something called trash and treasure. The trash being something that happened this week that wasn't so great, and the treasure being something that was really happy or really great, made you feel really good. Rather than going around the whole entire group, because I think we'll be here for 2 hours, I'd love to invite everybody to write their trash and treasure in the chat, and we can kind of have this ongoing conversation throughout the talk today. Okay, let's begin. So first up, we have Kuweni, who's one of our members based in Australia. Now, Kuweni is not here at the moment. I might just message and see where she is. But next on the list is Kate. Kate, would you like to introduce yourself and what you do? She's here and then she left. Okay, so while we're waiting, maybe we could just do a little bit of a trash and treasure in the chat. I can see some members are here already, which is really nice. Kate said she can't hear anything and she's joining again now. And it's lovely to see new faces as well. Always nice to connect. And here's Kate. Kate, can you is your microphone working?
Mine.
Yeah. Hey, we were waiting for Kuweni, but she doesn't seem to be here. Did you want to explain a bit about Climate Emergency Network now and sort of start your talk? Go first.
Can do. Hello, everyone. I'm so sorry. I was having technical trouble and I couldn't hear anything that Matthew was saying. I'm really happy to be here. I'm calling you from Central St Martin's, University of the Arts London. And I'm a co-founder of the Climate Emergency Network. Thank you. If you don't mind trying to scroll all the way down to the bottom of our feed, I'll do a sort of potted history of who we are. But essentially, we're a bunch of students and staff from University of the Arts London, and in around 2019 we started doing some climate emergency assemblies because we felt that we wanted to get organized a bit more around climate and ecology, figure out what we wanted to do as individuals, as a community, and also what we wanted the university to do as an institution. And so we were keen to connect and share and, share work and learn, but also hold the university to account. And so, yeah, in 2019 and 2020, we did some climate emergency assemblies, which were really interesting. And we started lots of great kind of grassroots work within the university. And then lockdown hit. And so we basically were slightly shelved, I guess. Like it felt like there were obviously other priorities. But so then we started doing online events, we created a newsletter, and that's how we really started to build our membership, trying to keep people connected and keep planetary health on the table at the same time as kind of global health. And we started doing some online conferences and festivals. And then one of the first big events we did was for COP26, and you're starting to see, I think some of the, well, actually we're not even there yet, some of the images from our, we did a kind of creative climate summit called Carnival of Crisis. And the idea was what would happen if artists and designers were in charge of something like a global climate summit? What would it look like? What would it feel like? What kind of energy would it have? So we called it Carnival of Crisis. And we basically, students and colleagues and friends from all around the university created events, activities, runway shows, zines, all kinds of stuff. And we ended up doing a parade for climate justice. And essentially this was kind of like a protest and performance on the move through London. We ended up in Chelsea Parade Ground. So one of our colleges is called, is Chelsea College of Arts, and actually it has a parade ground, which used to be a military parade ground. And that's where we kind of did a bunch of talks, trying to kind of gather people who at the time, I guess, felt quite fragmented, and we didn't really have a sort of movement within the university yet. And I guess fast forward 3 or 4 years, we've been celebrating Earth Day for, this is our third year of Earth Day. And we have, actually what we could do is flip to our Earth Day collection on Eventbrite. I think we've got about 40 events this year, yeah, all around our colleges. And some of them are student-led, some of them are staff-led. And really we're just trying to kind of encourage people to channel their creativity into, you know, action. Whether that's something incredibly loud, incredibly in your face and bold, or whether that's sort of gentle, restorative, supportive. And so we have that you can click on to see more events if you like. At the bottom of that list, there's a few more. Yeah, we have a really brilliant range of stuff happening, from like the kind of very hands-on to the more like discursive. We've got screenings. Yeah, and it's basically our way to try to connect beyond courses, beyond colleges, and also like in a non-hierarchical way. So we try to bring people from all different job roles, whether that's academics or technicians, and different parts of the university, both staff and students alike. So yeah, this year our Earth Day is called From the Ground Up. We're kind of celebrating both creatures and things that happen in the soil and underground, on which we rely, but also the idea of grassroots action, and that change happens often from the ground up or from the middle out. So yeah, celebrating both change makers and earthy creatures. I guess that's just a very, very short intro. I'm really happy to take questions and share about anything people want to know more about. But that's essentially who we are.
That's great. Thank you so much, Kate, for explaining all the amazing work that you guys do. So the format of the talks, we'll do 10 minutes of a talk with a speaker, and then there's 5 minutes for questions. So if anyone has any questions throughout, please add them to the chat and we can read them out, or please feel free to chime in now as well. So if anyone does have any questions for Kate, now is the time. I have a question for you, Kate, actually. What is your, obviously, other than this talk, what is your favorite event, or the one that you're looking forward to the most this week?
That's really nice. Gosh, so many. We got some really nice screenings coming up here. We've got a big green screen, well, we're calling it the green screen. We're going to be showing some really beautiful short films by students from the MA Performance Screen program. Actually, later today we've got patchmaking workshop. Sarah June is a student who she's really interested in the relationship between how we treat old garments and how we treat older people. So this kind of notion of, people aren't disposable and need to be treasured as well. So she's very interested in intergenerational work. Yeah, so she's going to be here at CSM between 1 and 4 patchmaking. If you're around, please come along. I see Catherine's a CSMer. That's nice. Oh, sorry, Bobby. Yeah, so actually, maybe we can pop the link to the Eventbrite collection in the chat. It's Earth Day 2024, and the collection, well, it's called From the Ground Up. So yeah, we have a theme every year. So year one was appetite for justice. So it was all around having a seat at the table. And so we did lots of different things around food and convening in a sort of really friendly, informal way, because we felt that that was a way to kind of really level things, that like sometimes these conversations can be overwhelming, but actually getting together with some food, with some music and a relaxed atmosphere and feeling like you don't need to be an expert on this stuff. You can just have a chat. That was our vibe. Last year we did something called The Greenhouse, and that was based around a big exhibition in the Letterly Gallery at CSM. And this year we, from the ground up. Catherine, I see your, online. We do have quite a lot of stuff happening online, obviously this talk, but there are other talks as well. There's something called Earthing for Earthlings, which will be online. And yeah, if you go through the listing, I think there are like 5 or 6 different events that will be happening online. We also have a really lovely new, we have an online showcase. Some of you might be familiar with if you're from UAL. And on the showcase, we have collections which gather together works from all around the university. And we've asked a former student called Paulina, who now works for Earthrise Studio, to curate a collection of student work. So that's a collection called We Are Nature, and I've just put the link in, which celebrates our students. Yeah, there's so much going on, and I'm quite frazzled. I've been up since about 4 trying to get everything happening. So yeah, apologies if I'm slightly rambling, but I'm here for questions, here for chat. Really happy to be here.
That's great. Thanks so much, Kate. And are you going to stick around for the talk today as well? Can people ask you things?
Yeah, I can stay until 1, right, or 2?
It's on until 2 our time. Yeah.
I might need to jump off at some point if I'm requested, but otherwise I'm here.
All good, all good. I think we have one question from Inez.
Yeah, I see that. Thank you. Ines, are you a CSM student, or who are you?
Hi, I'm actually a RCA alumni. I was based in London for a while, but now I'm back home in Porto, Portugal.
Yeah. Oh, nice to see you. Yeah, it's a really good question. I think we like the kind of roots, like the DNA of our climate emergency network came from quite a lot of activism in sort of 2019, 2020, when there was nothing really on the agenda. We didn't have a climate action plan. We didn't actually, like, for example, Matthew, who works at CSM, wasn't in post. We didn't have people working as climate advocates. A lot of stuff has happened over the 4 or 5 years since then. And it's not just been us. Obviously, there's been a lot of other stuff happening in the curriculum, and stuff around like how we manage our waste and our resources. But I think we've been quite instrumental in like bringing people together and like just keeping bridge building and networking. We don't do stuff that feeds directly into the curriculum, but we do sometimes help to set briefs. But we do work with all the programs, well, as many as will, are open to it, I guess, whether it's students or through staff. We're sort of like a big mycelium. That's sort of the approach that we have to things. And it seems to be, I mean, we've been growing quite steadily over the last few years. And I think there is a sort of critical mass happening. It's really interesting. I mean, for those of you who are within other large organizations, whether it's the RCA or other organizations, I think there's constantly a tension between what you want to do as an individual or as a sort of collective and what the institution can or will do. And I think that's the kind of dance that we're dancing. We're sort of semi-autonomous, I would say, but we're also a part of the institution because some of us are staff. And so there's this desire to be a critical friend and to keep nudging the university to do more. And yeah, it's an interesting dynamic, and I think it's shifted quite a bit over the last few years, to be honest with you. It'd be interesting to know what Matthew thinks as someone who's also operating within the institution, or anyone else really who has similar experience.
No, for sure. I think for those of you who don't know, so I'm the sustainability lecturer for the fashion department at St Martin's, and my role came into play a couple of years ago now. And as Kate mentioned, there's more roles that are kind of coming about in terms of sustainability, climate, race, social issues, social justice. And there's a lot of conversation that we're trying to have together as a collective. And the Climate Emergency Network is one way in which people are connecting through that, both staff and students. So it's definitely improved since I was a student, that's for sure. it's much more of a conversation.
Be interesting to hear what it's like at the RCA, how your experience is, Eunice.
Well, being at the RCA always had big tensions. It's a huge corporate business. Our teachers were very unhappy. And also I did my master's there while we were living through the pandemic. So that was very challenging. We were most of the time away from school. I think there is an increasing amount of activities and events around these topics, but I'm not entirely sure how this was put in practice into like the way that the school is managed. Or so we had our fights. I think it's a big business, and with all big businesses comes big trouble as well in balancing financial sustainability with other things. And I think also because I was doing this inside of the pandemic period, it was also challenging. But I remember I work mainly with food politics and edible works, and doing a master's in sculpture was quite challenging because of all the health and safety restrictions as well, which is quite interesting as you can use all the artificial materials you want with no problem, but you cannot feed your colleagues. And this kind of dichotomy was quite interesting to me in terms of like what is healthy and safe. I don't know if you have any considerations on this.
Yeah, that's super interesting. We've been trying to do work with our caterers around the food, and actually that first Earth Day, when our theme was appetite for justice, we did manage to convince them to go vegan for the day, which wasn't, you'd think that would be easy, but actually they were hugely concerned that like lots of people would be incredibly unhappy, wouldn't have anything that they wanted to eat. But we managed to do it for one day. And now I think, I mean, their plant-based offer is much better. I think they're doing what they can. They've reduced their plastics a lot and so on. It's interesting what you were saying about your work, because that year, we worked with a really lovely student called Risa Ueno, who works with edible sculpture as well. I'll find a link. And actually Risa's here today, weirdly. She's working on the patch making workshop. And they kind of helped her a lot. We've had students working with our caterers on like recipes using different kinds of foodstuffs, like from algae, and like really interesting. They've been more and more open. And I think it's often the people who are actually like the chefs and the people who are working day to day on things are super curious, and it's all about building relationships with them. Whereas there are people who are sitting in offices making the big decisions about things that tend to just say no because it's too much hassle, rather than having a bit of an open mind and an open heart about these things. And so, yeah, for us, it's been very much about just talking to real people, and not people in suits. I say that, yeah, in a slightly guarded way, but you know, that's the reality. And yeah, if you can build relationships with people, then there's lots of possibility that starts to open up. Let me find you a link for Risa's work. Maybe you know it already.
Thank you so much, Kate.
Worry.
We unfortunately have to move on.
Yeah.
It's so nice to understand a bit more about Climate Emergency Network and how people get involved. And thank you so much for coming.
My pleasure.
Yes. So how do people get in contact with you if they...
Thank you. I will put our email in the chat. I've just put Risa's work in the chat. And yeah, I'll pop Instagram and stuff on there as well. Do check us out and come along to events. You know, at the moment, some of our events are internal, but we often do external events. We've collaborated with the Barbican and other organizations to do lots of like drop-in stuff for families and other audiences. So we're super friendly and we're really open to connecting and collaborating. That's what we love. I will, yeah, I'll put details in the chat now.
Thank you so much. So next we have Orsola de Castro. Some of you might know Orsola already. Orsola is a member of Trash Club, a supporter of Trash Club, an advisory board. She's everything Trash Club, and she's very trash, and we love her so much. She's coming from Italy today.
Yeah.
I shall hand over to you, Orsola. Floor is-
Cool. Am I speaking to myself? Can I see somebody, or is it just black? Just my camera. Just my camera. Okie dokie. So nice to be the original trash granny. My favorite place, my favorite position. So it's actually really interesting to be here talking to you guys today, because I'm in Venice. I was here to see the Biennale, but it's actually, I'm in the middle of Fashion Revolution Week. And this is the second Fashion Revolution Week since I resigned from Fashion Revolution. For those of you who don't know Fashion Revolution, it is, at this point, I think, potentially the largest fashion activism movement in the world. We have a presence in over 80 countries, 85, I think it is at this point. And I'm the co-founder, and I was for 10 years the creative director, brand director, so to speak. And proud as I am of this movement, and proud as I am of all the big changes that have happened since we started this organization, big changes for the better, not the best, but the better, such as increased transparency and certainly increased awareness of the impact of the fashion industry. I left quite deliberately because of the sense that it seems as important for me to work on smaller things rather than carry on a role that potentially is about gigantifying everything. What I'm most proud of Fashion Revolution was how it always looked at the wisdom and the knowledge and the commitment of the country coordinators and their teams, as I said, over 80 at this point, and how therefore Fashion Revolution had somehow a seed of decentralization about it. It wasn't just an organization run from necessarily London, which of course it was, but it expanded a little bit. But for me, having seen what a huge organization can do in terms of impact, after 10 years, I felt, this isn't right for me. This isn't right for my message. This doesn't feel relevant or relatable anymore. And what does matter is the work that I'm doing now, and to a certain extent, the work that I was doing before, which is ridiculous and small. Ridiculous in the sense that, I mean, like the other day I spent, 4 or 5 hours of my day fiddling with a pair of children's broken tights, putting them on my head, doing crochet on them, just for the sake of seeing what else they could become, because nobody wanted them. And the rest of the time I spend potentially mentoring or working with designers, labels, people creating systems and ideas that are so small. But just the thought that will handhold each other until they reach visibility seems like a really, really long journey compared to what we are used to seeing. But after 10 years of, I'd say, professional activism, I realized that actually to be fully heard by one person or two people is more important than being half seen by millions. And that at the end of the day, what is difficult right now is that first step into anything, believing that we can make a difference, believing that we can do it, because the world around us, outside of our window, is bloody distorted. It's huge. it's fake, it's unfriendly, it's dangerous. And it does feel difficult to start and to put that energy towards making a difference, whether it's making a difference to yourself, being able to decently earn your living, envisaging what it would be like to be the kind of designer that gives decent work to others in your micro supply chain, and to be able to support yourself. It's difficult. It's difficult to find something new in a world that only really espouses new ideas. It's difficult to make your mark and to be heard and to be seen when we are so used to uniformity that we only really look for that. We only really understand the gigantification, the duplication, the upscalability of things. We do not understand things made for things' sake, things that are small, things that don't become a global business or a global charity activism or a global this and a global that. And I am profoundly rebellious. And I reject this truth. So what I am doing now, and I guess what I'm talking about, I'm so sorry that I'm the only one with no slides. I can't do slides. I get really jammed up. But I reformed the organization that to a certain extent was the one that catapulted me into activism rather than my original role as a designer. That's what I am. I'm a trasher. I've picked up rubbish and made clothes with it or whatever ever since I could. And that was the first incarnation of my life. Just briefly to mention, I upcycled with Topshop, with Speedo, with Kappa, with, we were worn by the Sex in the City people and sold in top boutiques, all of it trash, all of it complete and utter rubbish transformed. But then I co-founded Estethica at London Fashion Week, which actually was the showcase that placed on this map many young designers that we know and love now. I mean, this was 2006, so it's a long time ago. But we did create space for designers that came from all over the world that were making amazing clothes as well as amazing systems. And now we've reformed. It's different because we're no longer BFC, very definitely no longer BFC. But the impetus and the aim is the same. So in fact, today, I don't really want to talk to you about what I do. I'd love you just to go and see what it looks like over there. On Instagram, it's at Estethica_fashion. Because it's difficult these days to try and do something good. It's difficult also to try and do something that pleases as many people as possible. And I never wanted to come out with a prescriptive, this is what we do. I would love if you, the people who follow this kind of work, not just from myself, but many others, individuals and organizations, if we could really understand what is needed. Because these are times of profound changes. And business is always run with, oh, this is what I want to do. This is my USB. This is my line. This is my identity. Well, I don't want any of that. I'm much more interested in hearing what others would feel could be of benefit, particularly today, because it is Earth Day, particularly because we are destroying people and planet on account of the fact that we refuse to change some pretty simple algorithms related to kindness, related to respect. And so on Earth Day, I talk about what I do. I talk about the despair and the immense creativity that there is. I've just been to a Venice Biennale that was primarily a political biennale, one that tried to teach us a different history, tried to teach us how things could have been different had we learned history in a different way. So for me, I've also joined a new organization called Mothership. It is impossible to stay silent while looking at things happen. For me, it is vital that any one of us who is creative can use their creativity as a service rather than an ego enhancer. For me, it is important that we look at what we all have to give and try as much as possible to enhance what the other is doing in order to achieve common ground. For me, it is all about the collective. And so if you have the chance to look at Estethica and you want to leave some comments, please do. Or if you have some questions from me right now, please do. But effectively, happy Earth Day to all of you. And let's hope that the future Earth Days will not be with all of us terrified of our environment that we all share and looking at such a precarious political situation. It is high time that every single one of us does what it can be done to change, improve, and better, not just our industry, but also our industriousness, our commitment from the little to the rest of the community.
Thank you so much, Orsola. Do we have any questions? If not now, it's all good. What are you most excited about at the moment, Orsola?
Sorry?
What are you most excited about at the moment?
So I've been really excited about art. I mean, you know, I'm sitting here in a country that has gone painfully right wing. So I think I'm not necessarily going to see another Biennale that really looks at inclusivity and politics and history the way that this one has. I am excited about telling the truth. I am excited about the fact that we've been fluffing our views for years in everything we've done, and that there is a veil lifting. It's a really scary veil lifting, and I think it's lifting also a veil on our stupidity, on our worst asset as people. But it is lifting a veil, and that is not just exciting, it is also very, very much needed.
I couldn't agree more. Thank you so much. There's one question from D. How do we link up with Estethica? What can we do?
Exactly, help me. I don't know either. So this is the great thing, you know. I started Fashion Revolution, which was like, all right, we do this, we do that, we do the other. But ultimately, I'm not that kind of a person. So I feel like right now is the time for asking questions rather than being prescriptive with one solution. Because what might sound or look like a solution to me might not be at all what you need or what you want. A dialogue is what I would like to see, you know, asking questions that are pertinent and how can I help? But not as in, you know, do you look for volunteer? No, not at all. But how can I intellectually and emotionally provide some kind of a relief, which comes maybe from my experience, but can be enjoyed and understood by the collective? There is such a sense of high individualism right now. You know, when I was younger, growing up, everybody wanted to be a film director. These days, everybody wants to be a CEO. We are so obsessed with pyramidal structures and placing ourselves at the top. And so I don't know. I would love you to come to have a look at Estethica and, you know, let your imagination run free. Contact me, DM me, anything. What we try and do is, obviously, we also have to make money. So we do work with brands, helping them to understand clearly their sustainability proposition. That's what we are. We are experts in sustainability. But at the same time, that's not the be all and end all. And many of the brands that we help and support, we wouldn't ask them for money because we know that they wouldn't be in a position to pay. So we are creating new systems, asking new questions. And I'm curious as to know what you guys feel would be interesting to see and interesting for organizations run by older, experienced people such as us, because that's what we are. What you think is missing, what you think is what you'd like to see. Thank you for asking the question. I would love to hear, sorry, I saw something written.
It's from Louisa. It says, I would love to hear a piece by Orsola on CEO-ism / peer through Estethica.
Look, for me, if you can't look at somebody at this level, but you have to go up or down, relationships fucked. I'm only interested in that. And therefore, if I'm a CEO or a director, I've had that roles in life. I'm not in a position of equality with my interlocutor or whoever it is that I'm speaking to or listening. And I actually am an anarchist. And people use the word anarchy to describe chaos. Other way around, anarchy needs actually quite a lot of bureaucracy, because if we're hearing from people and if we're making things all the same, there's a lot of organization that needs. So I do believe in organization. And in fact, when it comes to women and women, mothers, aunts, people who identify as with everything that's anti-patriarchy, I believe what we do need to do is to organize. But my sense of organization, my anti-CEO-ism is holding hands and being all at the same level and all speaking so we can properly hear each other.
Thank you so much for sharing, Orsola. Thank you. Hang on, we've got Kuweni joining us. Kuweni is a member based in Australia who's going to share some of her work now. I'm just going to put it up on the screen. There we go. Kuweni, take it away.
Hi everyone, my name is Kuweni. I'm joining you from Banjarabara country in, so that's the indigenous country in Queensland, back of Gold Coast. This is quite late here, around 9:30, but it's lovely to hear everyone and join you here. I'll just talk to you about my practice. So it's very much practice that has many dimensions to. So I'm an artist based in Australia and also in Sri Lanka. My practice is a place-based practice. I'm also a diasporic artist and a multidisciplinary artist. And my practice has multi-dimensions. And the purpose of my practice is to help people really feel at home in their body and place. And I do that by helping people go to a deep space. When I say deep space, it's a space where we can deeply listen, deeply think, and deeply learn. And how I do that is with my cultural practice of ritual, which I learned from Indigenous elders in Sri Lanka. And place-based, as a place-based artist, I'm also a regenerative practitioner. So what it means is that you regeneratively map your projects, helping the place and people regenerate into a place. And how you do that is through looking at the potential of place, setting regenerative goals, understanding the vocation of the place, and bringing the right people together as a creative guild, not as much as stakeholders. There's a bit of a difference there, in the right order. And I have done about 3 projects, or I'm involved in 3 projects. One in my little village in Bibila with the Indigenous community there. Another one I'm working on is with decolonizing tea with a tea company in Sri Lanka who exports to the US, and working with female tea workers to express art through my arts practice into a creative body of work. And the third thing is I'm hoping to create an art space where I live here, particularly for women of color, to come and practice art and understand and unpack, have participated in the art and unpack what it is to belong in Australia. The other angle of my work is I'm also a community artist. So what that means is that you provide a space for participation, access, inclusion, connection, creativity, and social justice. In 2021, I was hired by an NGO. They were a change maker called Australia Remade to hold an exclusive space for people of color, migrant people of color. That birthed a couple of projects. One was Running Rivers, People of Place, and the other one was Reverberations. These are two projects that really help people of color belong within the gallery spaces and help people of color participate in the arts. The other one is Reverberations, is very much an autobiographical film, a story through film, and also performance art, and a three-piece project, which I'll talk about in the next slide. Can we have it? Yeah. So that's more like a diasporic. The other dimension is that I'm a diasporic artist, which means someone who shares the diverse experience of culture and identity through work. So this is the project I was talking about before, the three aspects of it being shown as a film and performance, activation, and participatory arts experience, where people will come together, create art together, and make an ephemeral public artwork. The idea is to have the dialogue. I think, like beautifully Oslo mentioned, the dialogue is so important for change, and dialogue is the art really for me. That's where the change really happens. And it's not about someone who will walk away with a complete solution, but I think we open our hearts up and to hold a vision. And that's where the real change actually starts, I believe. And as an artist, I think that's what I want to do. Help people look at something differently and give them a different lens. At least kind of build that curiosity to find their own lens. So in this space, it's very much the dialogue that's really important for perception changing dialogue for the dominant culture and for people of color. And if I look at the next slide, I'm also a conceptual and experimental artist, where I create a body of work. I really do my research, and research is a very important part of this work. And that research actually informs the work, and then that's what will make me choose what medium I will use, and then for critical engagement. The work is mostly multisensory and multidisciplinary, and that's to get emotional response from people. And my work tends to have autobiographical aspect, so that there's authenticity, and I share from a lived experience, not based on other people's experience. So that's pretty much the different aspects of my practice, and I would love to ask if there's any questions, or again, a dialogue is beautiful. So if you ask questions, I could probably explain more than me talking. I prefer than talking at you to talk with you. So yes.
Thank you so much, Kuweni, for talking about your work. Obviously, you're a member of Trash Club, but it's so nice to just see you and hear you explain your work yourself. It's so different as an experience. I have a question about your process. A lot of the sort of imagery that we see of you working and making works, a lot of it's outside. I don't know, could you explain a bit about why it's outside and maybe how nature feeds into the process for you?
Sure. So for my, I think one of the slides talked about how I'm a place-based artist. I think I talked a lot about regenerative practice, but really it's about helping people connect with place. So my practice works as a conduit between people and place. And it's really about helping, I go out to nature, find all my pigments from nature. So all the colors I use as a base is pigments so it's earth pigments and plant pigments. My inspiration really comes from nature, and I work with nature, and then I bring it to my artwork. And the other aspect, I guess, is that the tools I create, so my brushes are also made from nature. So it's very much being in nature, in connection with nature, making art in nature. So it's a very, very, outdoors process for me.
No, I love it. And also, do you display the work in nature? Is there sort of like a different reception for you to sort of explore presenting it outside versus making something in nature outside and presenting it inside? Do you feel like you get a different response or a different sort of interaction from the audience?
I do, yes. I feel like I present nature in a different way, so people connect with nature. I guess it's the elements presented in a different way. I find I'm just starting to do public artwork, more ephemeral work outside as public artwork. It'll be interesting to see how that is received as well.
No, absolutely. Thank you so much for explaining. Do we have any more questions for Kuweni? Are you sticking around, Kuweni, or do you have to leave?
Oh no, I'm here. That's fine.
So maybe if anyone has any other questions.
I think there is a question here. I just saw, what plants do you use the most? Is there any relation between your food waste and your colors? I do lots of waste-based dyes. I'm curious to know. I am a place-based artist, so I use any plant wherever I am. All my clothes, my whole wardrobe is handmade. All the clothes I had made and dyed from place, mostly from pigments in Australia, where I live. So plants, I have done, so anything with the scientific name Tinctoria, I try. I try and extract pigments through reduction or solar dyeing. And I do waste, I'm a Sri, so as a Sri Lankan, we use a lot of onion. So I use a lot of onion and onion skins as a base dye. I have used a lot of fruit. I make my own vinegars with all the citrus scraps, just to use it as a mordant. But other than that, haven't really done much. I've used cabbage as well as a food. Yeah, that's another food crop I've used. Thank you.
Thanks, Kuweni. Another comment from Inez is onion skin dye is my favorite. Thank you so much. Honestly,
Yeah.
I see the students at St. Martin's, they're starting to make a lot of natural dyes and things like that. It's insane how many things that come from nature and how we can kind of use. I guess we've just been sort of conditioned through time to think that we need to use synthetic dyes to create brighter colors and things like that. But it's so fascinating to hear you talk about your work, Kuweni. Thank you so much.
And I think wearing something from place, there's something very different, very primordial about it too. I mean, I've worn clothes from nature for about 10 years now. There's something, I don't know, you become a creature of place. There's something very primordial that happens. I just want to share that.
And that's so interesting as well. What made you start making your own clothes? Was it like an accident or was it very intentional?
Very intentional. I just didn't have anything that I could buy that I could feel I was very close to, because clothes is like your second skin. And I just wanted to, adorn myself with things that was precious, and I couldn't find anything that was close enough that I could really feel that. So then I thought, okay, I'll make clothes. And then I researched and found different dyes, and yeah, it became my own process. And then also the stitching is a beautiful thing to do, to, embroidery and things. You can make it all your own way of doing too. You don't have to follow which I don't, process.
No, it's so interesting. And do you consider the clothes that you make to be, I mean, obviously it's part of your practice, isn't it? So do you display them, or is it just sort of to wear them? And are you the subject? So are you kind of like the output as an artwork?
Yeah, I don't display them. I have very, very early in my career, but more it's like activism that I wear the clothes, and also I become the subject, and it's a beautiful, yeah, it's a very personal thing I do for myself. This art is just for me, selfishly.
It's so fascinating. Is your studio, because there's some images, some beautiful images of you outside with like a sort of studio setup. Do you have something that's like permanent outside, or do you kind of bring things into nature and sort of construct?
A lot of my work is in nature. So I make pigments and things outside as well, but some elements I do inside. With paper-based work, I bring the pigments inside and I do the last layer inside rather than, but I do always start work outdoors.
Thank you so much. I think we could learn so much from your practice and your process and your approach to your practice and how it sort of aligns with your ethos as a human being as well. Thank you so much, Kuweni. Do you have anything else you'd like to say? How can people get in contact with you if they wish?
I've got a website, kuweni.com, and also I would love for you to follow if you like my work on Instagram. It's Kuweni_artist.
Thank you so much. And you also have the best website. It's just kuweni.com. It's so perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Of course, anytime. And next we have Eunice, who's joining us from Porto in Portugal.
Hello, everybody. Happy Earth Day. Matthew, thank you so much for facilitating this. Kuweni, your work is so beautiful. I'm obsessed. Like, I've been through your website like 5 times already. It's beautiful. Congratulations on your amazing work. My name is Eunice. I'm the co-host for Trash Club Porto, also a visual artist, and I'm the founder of Pais, Ethical Image Making. Pais is a photo production company. We're based in Porto, Portugal. And what drives us basically are 2 questions. One of them being, can fashion photography be an ethical practice? And can photography be a partner in sustainability? And the first question stems a lot from my early days as a freelance photographer. I worked as a fashion photographer, and I saw a lot of dissonance between the messaging that some brands had versus what happened on set, whether it was how wasteful it was with the props and traveling and packaging, or the stories that they wanted to tell were either misrepresented, exploitative, a bit fetishizing, and so on. So I started asking this question: if working as a photographer in fashion could translate into something more meaningful than just a service to. And I started aligning myself with ethical fashion brands at the time and look how they modeled their work, and thought that maybe it would be interesting to have a set of practices of my own that I could implement as a photographer. And then as this research and trial and error continued, I started asking another question, which is, if photography intersects with so many other industries, whether it's fashion, food, marketing, journalism, can it not, as an industry, be a partner in sustainability and have, not just a set of rules and conducts and whatever, but actually have a stance on sustainability, on the environment, and on people that actually aligns with the issues that we're unfortunately living. So that's how Pais came about. So basically, we have these 2 questions, and my hypothesis, and everyone who takes part in it, hypothesis is yes, fashion photography can be an ethical practice, and photography can be a partner in sustainability. So in every single photo production that we create and co-create, we try to prove that yes, it is a yes, and we do it with as differently as we can, depending on who we are co-creating with. So at the moment we have a commercial branch, so we work with fashion brands, ethical fashion brands, but we also now are expanding and are working with different entities that want to have these conversations. They want to create imagery that is not wasteful on sets and on the production day. They also want to have the stories that are shown in front of the camera to be a match on what's behind the camera. So they want to facilitate the people who actually are impacted by these stories to tell the stories and have some type of equity. So we are sort of in the midst of just wanting to be as authentic, as conscious, and as dignified as we can, and give that to the community that we're part of. In this case, is Porto. So we try to bring social equity by hiring more people whose stories are being told. And we believe that's either financially or artistically, that's really important to have. Even though it's like the invisible side of photography, it's to us the most important side of photography. And that's how we can answer, yes, it can be an ethical practice. And yes, we can be a partner in sustainability. But we also love art. So we have an artistic branch where we look at human nature connections. And I can't stress enough how environmental justice cannot happen without social justice. So we look at human nature connections as interspecies connections. So if one ecosystem is in balance, it will reverberate throughout every other ecosystem, and those ecosystems cooperations are then either damaged or endangered or severed. So we do it on one hand in an abstract way. So we dive into what is this connection between each other, and in this space that we call home, what can those things bring about and unearth? And especially being a woman of color, it has a lot to do with trauma, with healing, with joy, with contemplation. But we also want to give back. So we have a collaborative branch in which we facilitate or create space for different people to use our knowledge, to use our expertise, to create their own stories. So whether it's people that we work with in our production, sometimes stylists want to tell a story and they have something that they want to do and they don't have the resources, and we do. So we distribute that privilege as well amongst our communities, whether, especially here in Porto, whether it's people, artists or craftspeople who are focused on preserving knowledge and preserving tradition or craft, or are doing something that is so respectful of people and the planet, but they cannot necessarily have someone to create images with them that align with what they believe, or maybe don't even have the resources or the money to pay for photography. We also give back in that way. I give my time and my skills as a photographer, and I give back to the community as well. We give back as an agency to the community. So, and we've been doing this for 3 years, and it's been an amazing learning curve, and that's what we do. But again, I will say, and I will say this for as long as I can, a photography is a photography, a photo is a photo. If you see a photo on our website and you see a photo on another photo production agency's website, it's a photo. And it's the beauty of photography is that it's illusory, so the viewer can imagine whatever they want. And I think that's the gateway of any inspiration. But what we're focused on is the invisible part. We want what's outside or what's in front of the camera to match what's behind the camera. And being a woman of color, again, I know what invisibility looks like, and I, for one, don't want to be entertaining that idea ever. Any questions?
Thanks so much, Eunice. Again, obviously, I know your work very well. Your imagery is all over the Trash Club website, everywhere, and we're so excited about what Trash Club Porto is going to be, especially based off of all of your incredible work that you do with your studio and your practice. I have a question, just while everyone else is thinking. Talking about collaborations, is there like a highlight or a collaborative project that really sort of made you learn something or really stuck out to you, in terms of, you know, this collaborative element that you discussed within your studio space?
There have been a few. I do think that every time that, because this part of the collaborative, it's more people who reach out to us, and sort of they want to do something, but they kind of don't know how to manifest that. So we've worked with a few ceramic artists that they draw their work from very specific traditional ways of working clay, whether it's from the south of Portugal or here in the north, close to the border of Spain. And we've learned a lot about the processes of seeing them making what they make, but also when they approached us, it was quite interesting because they didn't know what we do. They liked what we did, but they kind of felt that we were, you know, ethical, but didn't know what that meant. And then it was such a learning curve from both of us, because we sort of mapped out a plan to collaborate, but they were like, okay, but this is not necessarily the best way to work because it entails maybe waste and so on and so forth. So like for us, this branch, the collaborative branch, is where we learned the most, because we're just in a position of facilitating, but also where we work with so many people in various industries, like stylists and also makeup artists, that we've kind of are taking notes all the time, more so than telling them how things are done in photography, I would say. I don't know if that answers your question, but it's very hard for me because I love our community so much, and yeah, everybody's is super special, and every project is super interesting. Where we have one coming up with the makeup artist, she had like this she just showed us a few sketches of masks that she would like to create with found waste, different materials, but like waste makeup, like makeup that is expired and whatnot. So we're now co-creating something, and we don't know what it's going to be like, but we know like we don't want it to be wasteful, and we want to be equitable as well for her, and we want to give her the opportunity to showcase her best work. So even in that, like we're learning so much about makeup at the moment. So yeah.
No, I love that, definitely. Especially just being resourceful, just generally, because also obviously when you do a photo shoot, there's so much potential waste, like physical waste that can come out of that. But at the same time, the environment traditionally of a photo shoot is to get the job done rather than it being everyone feels, and like, you know, if everyone feels comfortable, if everyone's getting paid fairly, like all of these conversations. Especially when you're talking about editorial, which a lot of here who work in fashion and design would understand. Can I ask you actually what made you start it in the very beginning? Like, obviously you had experience, and then that kind of led to you wanting to create your own thing. But was there like a significant moment or something? Or
Yes.
Yeah.
We were on set. I remember this, and it was the day of photo shoot, and something had come up. It was this brand, a Portuguese brand, and something had come up, and it was an issue, and the solution presented by the designer and the stylist to me was not the right solution. So I voiced my opinion and proposed something else. And obviously, they didn't accept it. They were like, no, we're going to do it this way because this is the best way. And I was already there, so I wasn't like going to walk away. And obviously, I have to think about financial sustainability as well. But I remember going home thinking, it doesn't matter. I'm just a freelance photographer. I'm just one person in a whole production, and I don't ever want to feel like this again. So I started drafting like practices that I could implement, and then I realized, okay, if I'm a freelance photographer with this ethical practice, I'm still just one person in a production. But if I create a company and an agency, that's a different conversation. And unfortunately, in a world like this, where corporations seem to have like the voice, I sort of created a shield that I'm still me, and the people I work with are still the people I work with, but it is a company, and then that has a different value. It lands differently when we talk to our clients. But that day it was in 2018, and I'll never forget. Yeah.
And here we are.
Here we are.
Yes. Inez. It's quite a long question, so I'm gonna read it out.
Okay.
You were sort of explaining the idea of how human beings are nature and we're animals. In this shade, culture and nature come from the very same place of belonging and earthing, and this becomes quite visible in the way that you are thinking about your medium. How is this way of thinking and living received amongst your clients, and what are they more curious about?
Oh wow. Okay. It's received differently. So our commercial clients, for the most part, they're sort of curious, and they get excited, but also sometimes I think, oh, this is probably not going to happen this way. So we push ourselves to prove, yes, we can, do a photo production that is of high quality, but has little to no waste, and has like the best people working on them. And it translates into a beautiful story. And usually at the end, what happens is that, well, at least the feedback that we have is that they actually didn't think that, the images in the production could have worked so well within the timeline and within the deadlines that they stipulated as they thought. And then the next time, usually these clients are recurrent clients. The next time they're themselves are like, oh, please be careful. We don't want to waste in this aspect. We don't want to create waste here. So maybe like if you don't want to travel, you can do something more locally, or please hire models that are representative of this story. So it's it has been a synergy of minds coming together and conversations happening in what I think it's a safe space. I think Pais is also a very safe space for this. Sometimes we agree, sometimes we don't agree, but it's never not agreeing doesn't mean that we're not going to co-create something that is meaningful and ethical. And I think our clients know that. In our artistic and collaborative branch, it's easier because we mostly work with community, the community from Porto, so people already know our work. But it's quite funny, whilst going back to like more commercial work on set as well, sometimes we hire people who are not very aware about environmental issues, or not that they're not aware, they just don't think as much. And no shade, this is life, we all have things to think about. We recognize that we're in a very privileged position of looking and thinking of these issues and actually creating action plans. If anybody here is a freelance, like it's not necessarily that easy to take time to think about life and still pay bills. So what we're noticing as well is on sets, like makeup artists or set designers, they come in like the first time we're like, we tell them, okay, let's reuse this prop, let's not buy a new prop, let's not use this type of makeup, let's just try to do something beautiful but more thoughtful. And the next time they're the ones who are like, okay, let's do this. Tomorrow let's go to that forest and see if she has waste so we can create the set. Or tomorrow let's go to that seamstress. Maybe she has like old fabric that she wants to throw out and we can bring it on set. So it's been amazing. So yeah, and it is a conversation. Everything is a conversation. Even in nature, we're always like being nature. We're always conversing with each other. And co-creating and collaborating. So to have that translated into a business is like the most miraculous thing for us. But yeah, that's what's been happening.
Thanks, Eunice. And just one quick last question from Flynn. Could I ask what are some examples of waste on fashion shoots?
Yes. So for example, when we have, like with stylists, this is a very common thing, stylists over pulling styles or accessories. So we have a few outfits, let's say 5, 6 outfits to shoot. But there's just garments, and we need all the shoes and the jewelry and so on and so forth. It's very common in this industry to think more is more. More options are better options. It's better to have more options than not to have few. So what happens is when a stylist overpulls, they might reach out to different designers and they send their stuff to us, and that's, you know, it's not just shipping, it's also the packaging that it comes, that we either have to have 100% care to then return back the same way because we don't want to buy more plastic or more cardboard or this or that. Whereas the shipping itself, like, it's from so far away that we can look into more local designers or locally to source our styling. That's one. Food is another one. So when we are set with catering, it's very, very, sometimes it was hard, but now it's easy. Like we only work if we're, imagine we're photographing downtown Porto in a very specific place. We will ask, you know, probably family-owned businesses to cater food for us. And I know this is also a very privileged thing to do because Porto is so small and everything is so familiar. So it's easy for us to do that way. But before it was, okay, let's order food, and it has all this like waste that goes, you know, just for a meal, and we don't know what to do with it, and then we throw it out in the packaging as well. And traveling, for example, sometimes, you know, I am hired as a freelance. This happened a lot. I was hired as a photographer from Porto, but then they traveled the model from South Africa, and then the stylist was from I don't know where. And it is obviously opportunities should be equitable, but it is a waste because there's so much local talent and there's so much that we have here that can be done here and co-created here. And if we add all these things up, it's so much waste without any necessity. So I think sometimes we just need to exercise the ingenious selves within us and also our creativity. And again, by no means, I'm not shading anyone. I know we're in a position of privilege because we can think of these things as well. And that's why we share the knowledge. Yes, studio lights as well. So that's another big one. LED screens and so on. We photograph mostly outdoors and we use natural light. So we stay away from that as well. And because, yeah, our aesthetics is very natural light. So usually our clients know already that, but yes, we try to stay away from studio lights and LED screens and so on as well.
Thank you so much, Eunice. Could speak to you all day. Showing your work. How do people get in contact with you?
Okay, I'll leave here the Instagram, Pais's Instagram. But if you have any questions, if you just want to reach out, have a chat, virtual coffee or true coffee, here's my email. We'll leave it on the chat box. And please get in touch. And yeah, thank you so much for listening to us.
Yes. Amazing. Next we have Cassie. Cassie, are you here?
Yes, I'm here. Hi.
Just popped up. Hello. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Really, really good, thanks. And there we go. I'll hand over to you.
Amazing. Thanks so much for inviting me to share a little bit about my work. My name is Cassie Quinn and I'm the founder of CQ Studio. So I wanted to give a bit of a background into how I came to found the studio, and I'll give a bit of an overview of a few projects that we've worked on. So my initial training was in fashion textiles, which was focused on embroidery and surface design. And during that time, I witnessed and experienced both after my studies, through work, a lot of waste and also harmful chemicals that are used. So in the dye studio, printing, there's lots of chemicals and lots of waste that's produced in the process. I really wanted to start my own design label, but wanted to focus on a fully sustainable collection and couldn't really find anything exciting that I wanted to work with, especially within embroidery and print design. So decided to go back to study and was part of the first cohort on the MA Biodesign at Central St. Martin's. This course really taught designers biology, and that's a real range of designers, not just fashion, but architecture, product design. So it was really incredible to learn from my colleagues as well. Currently now I'm also a PhD candidate back at St. Martin's, which has been funded and sponsored by a fashion label, but I can't say exactly who that is yet, but soon to be announced. And a lot of my work really focuses on using biomaterials, but also thinking about systems within design and using regenerative practices. Can we go on the next slide? So I wanted to talk about one of the first projects that actually came out of my master's. This was a collaboration with LVMH for the IUCN conference, which is a conference that happens in Marseille, where all of these leading scientists and researchers come to share the work that they're doing to support biodiversity. I was really interested to look at the industry that I worked in, which was, in textile design, and how we could, reimagine waste so that it's seen in the same way that nature does, which is as a resource for something else. And so the first thing I thought about was, in my specialism with dyeing and print, there's a lot of wastewater that's produced. And so I was able to develop this process that basically detoxifies the water. So it captures the contaminants, which is the pigment that's left in the runoff of water after fabric or yarn is dyed. The actual component that's in that solution is made of fungi or food waste. So that means it can be a vegan alternative as well. And recently I actually conducted experiments, and this works on natural dye wastewater as well. So as we transition out of synthetics, it will still actually clean that water. Even though it's a natural source, it's still important that we don't allow contaminants to reach waterways. So yeah, what I do with this solution is it separates out from the water, which is the most crucial part that makes it difficult to clean wastewater. Then it's left with some clean water and then a sludge material, which I then cure into sheets, and then they can be cut and finished. And you can see on the right-hand side how they look. And of course, the color is impacted by the water that you're cleaning. So this process is now at the stage where I'm trying to take it out of the sort of lab setting and actually try and scale it up, which I think is basically like starting from zero again, because really when you start to scale anything, it's a whole new process. And also trying to really think about what scale actually means. What is replacing one biodegradable material with a harmful material really the answer, when I think, as we all know, a lot of the issues are around consumption. So I'm taking my time and I'm not trying to rush things, because I really want to make sure that it has the right impacts and it's not just creating a new problem, which is why it's been very slow to actually fully properly launch this material. We are also patent pending on this innovation, so hopefully some developments to announce soon. So I'll go on to the next project. If you could do the next slide, please. So this is actually a partnership project that we worked on. I was hired by Maison Zero at Central St. Martin's. And it was basically, we were trying to investigate how we could create a regenerative biocolor system. So as a lot of you may know, currently your natural sources for dye and print are usually plant sources. Now the one difficulty with that is that takes up land, and obviously we now going forward are where there's going to be scarcity in land that we need for food. So really we were trying to see how we could use only algae, bacteria, or food waste. And what we really wanted to do was actually create a really broad range of colors. So people think of natural dyes, they usually think of the sort of muted earthy colors. We really wanted to show that if designers want to use these pigments in these more natural sources, that we can give as close to the full color spectrum as possible. And so what was really great about this project is we were able to, get this really broad range, but also we were discovering as we were printing and as we were experimenting that some of the colors mixed as we printed. So some acted as resist, so nothing would print, nothing would mix. Others, as you can see, the orange that's here, is a mix of the food waste and the pink bacteria that creates that really beautiful orange. So this was amazing that it's, yeah, there was even more colors that were able to be developed during the process. Alongside this, Carol Collette led this project, and there is actually a publication, and I think there's a link on UAL's website, and I can post it in here after I finish speaking, that it goes through all of the different farmers that we worked with, the CCAP who provided us with some of the algae, Colorifix who provided us with some of the bacteria, and yeah, a little bit more in depth of the whole processes that we actually used. As well, at the end, there is a little bit that goes into explanation as to how you can start to use regenerative practices as a designer, which I think can be very complicated, and it can be overwhelming when you aren't really familiar with the regenerative practices. So I definitely encourage you to check that out, because yeah, it's hard to really snapshot the extent of what this project was. Just on to the next slide, please. And so this project, Inflactuation, as you might hear from my accent, I'm Irish, Chinese Irish. And this was my final project in my master's, which is now came into my studio and also is now followed on into my PhD. It was really starting to investigate flax. And so flax is what makes linen. And obviously, as designers may know, linen has very specific qualities that, you know, it's not always easy to sew with. It gives a very specific type of feel, and it's, you know, summer fabric really. I really wanted to demonstrate how we could reintroduce flax into the UK climate so it can be farmed here once again, but to really diversify what the applications could be. So instead of it only being used for linen, what other types of textiles and materials could it possibly be? And so I worked with a farm in Ireland called Malin Linen. They're the only farm growing flax at the moment in Ireland, and they're using regenerative practices. And so that means that they grow flax, potatoes, and oats. Yes, it was at the Lobby 20 the other day. So using those materials, they're my ingredients that I worked with. Apart from some additives, which were natural pigments and some fertilizer. The idea is that you can have this single location that can actually create really a wide range of different materials that can be used in fashion. So in the top left-hand side, this was the flax fur. And it was, you know, and fur is obviously a fabric that's not really thought of with something like linen. That's a real summer material. It was naturally dyed with plants that could be planted nearby the farm. And then on the right-hand side, we actually cleaned the wastewater from that in order to make these fertilizer sequins. So again, really trying to think of all the waste streams that could potentially be produced. Some of the waste material, which is the short toe of flax, it's a bit too rough to be woven into a linen. So what I done was I made this sort of flax-like leather. I don't really like saying leather necessarily because obviously it's a whole different texture. It's a completely different type of material, but leather-like alternative. And it's sort of embossed texture that you see was actually created as it dries. So you don't need to use additional energy to actually create those patterns. And also flax is kind of a good you know, application in leather because it's 14 times stronger than cotton. So it's a very strong fiber. And when you have this sort of felted fabric that I make before putting the coating on, it really starts to lend itself to strength. With flax fibers over time, they sort of push in more with each other. That kind of binds it even tighter together. So over time, the intention is that it will wear in so that it actually improves the strength. But with this project, there was one waste stream that was produced that in my master's project, I couldn't quite figure out what to do with. And basically, to take it from a plant to the fiber that you then weave or knit or, you know, felt with, you have to place it in water. That's the process in the UK, at least. You place it in water. What used to happen was it was placed in rivers. That created a lot of pollution because it's basically rotting down the outer part of the plant. Now what happens is it's done in big drums. So you place the plant in water, you don't add anything, but the natural bacteria that's found in the plant in the soil starts to break down the outside bit. Now that water, it is organic matter, but it's still waste. And so my PhD is now investigating what can be grown on that water so that we have additional materials that can be used, whether it's for flax or for other textile applications. So I'm investigating whether it could be more sequins, it could be fibers, it could be coatings, it could be pigments, or a mix of all of the above. So I've only just started in January, so I'm still trying to figure out exactly how that's going to look. But yeah, that's a little snapshot of what I do at CQ Studio and also on my PhD. And I'm happy to drop in some links if anyone ever wants to get in touch to ask any questions.
Wow, thank you so much, Cassie.
No worries.
Impressive. Yeah, it's also amazing to kind of hear you explain these materials in more detail and like how they came out and how they connect with one another as well, which see when we talk about regenerative design, it's so much about connection and origins and how things turn. And just while we're thinking about some questions, my question to you would be, obviously regenerative design and regenerative as a word is becoming more and more, let's say, appropriated as well as more widely spoken about and discussed in these spaces. How would you define regenerative design for you and your practice?
I think, I mean, for me, regenerative is healing. It's about, how we can use our practices to have a positive impact. And I think, my first sort of port of call that I think is so important to talk about with regenerative design overall is that it's really looking back. I mean, I think a lot of people think that it's new ideas when it's not. I mean, a lot of ideas come from historical, agricultural practices that have existed for centuries. And the idea is that it's having more care for our processes and the practices that we use. Of course, everything, and this is where I kind of struggle because everything's extractive, and I think that's where it can become really complicated because, I mean, truly being regenerative wouldn't be making products, so it can be quite tricky. But I think it's always having that approach, which is how you can have, you look at nature as a collaborator instead of something that you're using and that you're exploiting. And it really is the most important thing is care and healing, and looking and really trying to understand what the benefits are. There's lots of communities of organisms that exist in soil and water, and I think that we have to remember that we're part of the community. We aren't this separate thing that can just exploit and take and extract. So yeah, I think that healing, care, community, collaboration, like all those kinds of words really are the main sort of points whenever you think of what regenerative design is.
Thank you so much. And it's so interesting as well because obviously, Kuweni, you just spoke about your work before, and it's so closely linked to the earth and nature and how we come from it. Yeah, so it's so interesting to see sort of like two different sides of a spectrum, how both are closely linked to nature and how one informs the other, and there's sort of this ongoing cycle. It's so interesting. And how do people get in contact with you, Cassie?
So let me just put in, I've got my emails. I'm happy for people to reach out. And I'm currently, so I'm based in London. I didn't mention that. I'm based in London. Currently, I'm at the Trumpery in Hackney Wick, but I'm actually soon moving. I've got a space in Abney Park in Hackney. So I'm going to be doing more like community workshops, so that people can come by and bring their own work and we can all work together and have more of these conversations. So I'll be posting a bit more about that on Instagram as well. But people can feel free to get in touch with me via email. I'm more than happy to chat through anything.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Are you going to stick around for the rest of
the Yeah, I'll stick around for a little bit. I have to pop off at 2, but I'll stay until then.
Thanks so much, Cassie.
Thank you.
Next, we have Bhaavya. Bhaavya is joining us from Jaipur in India. She's the founder of Era Zero Waste Studio and also the host of Trash Club in Jaipur. Bhaavya, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. I was really confused on how to present my work because Trash Talk has always been so informal. We can play. So basically, I run a circular design practice here in Jaipur. What we do is we take industrial waste and we take it to villages, different villages. And here in India, almost every village has had multiple cultures of crafting textiles, or will have at least one culture of crafting textile, and that kind of defines how the village has been expressing itself and expressing a sense of community, expressing its histories. So actually, if you pick up any textile that's made in India, that's been made at any given point of time, be it like 500 years ago or like just now, you can tell the entire history of that place through that textile. And that's what drew me into the textile sector in India, especially the crafted textile sector in India, that it makes the intangible tangible. And that's how we began. I also grew up in a garment factory, and I was kind of exposed to the problem of waste while growing up. So what I started to do was play with textile waste as a clay dough when I was growing up. And then I started studying textile design and found out how big a problem waste really is. And the natural solution for me was going to the crafts and crafting new textiles from it. And that's how Iro began. And I started weaving waste into new textile while preserving the cultural identity of that textile. At that point, what was also happening in the craft sector was a lot of the raw material is still being replaced by polyester, because that is the largely available raw material right now in India that is being pushed by the big industries to even smaller unorganized sectors. So we are seeing a lot of loss of knowledge, of indigenous knowledge of making raw materials due to colonialism, and we are seeing a push of synthetic materials due to capitalism. So my aim became that I want to also replace polyester as a raw material with waste that is biodegradable. So I want to make stuff that goes back into the earth like we do. Yeah, we can play the video. It's not a silent video. There is.
Can you hear it?
I don't think so.
Shall I start again?
Okay. Yeah, I'm sorry about the sound, but basically, so this is one cluster that we've developed over the last 7 years, one cluster of weavers. They were earlier weaving khadi, which is essentially handspun, hand-woven fabric. And then we saw a lot of push by the government and big corporation to weave something called polyester khadi, poly khadi, which would be hand woven, like they would supply us polyester yarn and you weave it, hand loom it back into fabric. But that would see a lot of degradation of indigenous knowledge. So we started working with waste and how can we kind of also focus on preserving that cultural identity that the fabric had originally. Then we started also collaborating with another cluster to embroider waste. And right now we are also collaborating with UNHCR to train refugees and really understand their skill set as well to make more expressive textiles. We are hoping to launch something with it soon this year. A problem we do face is that we become very process oriented when we are communicating what we do. We like almost the product comes later. And that is something that has been cited to me as a problem because then like it is a business at the end of the day. So yeah, if anyone would like to suggest anything, give us advice, ask us questions, we are open to that.
Thank you so much, Bhaavya. Are there any questions from anybody? Sorry about the sound issue as well. I don't know what you guys could hear, but the link is there in the chat as well for anyone who would like to see the film in their own time. And actually, maybe I have a question, Bhaavya. It was actually only we've known each other for a long time now, but it was only yesterday that I realized that you were.
That was so funny.
Actually, yeah, and I was wondering if you wanted to explain a bit about that and how the kind of connection to Iro began, you know, with the in terms of the factory and sort of how you work together. Because I think your process, you travel so much and you visit, you know, the artisans so frequently, and it's a huge part of your process. Could you explain a bit about that maybe?
So essentially, when I say I grew up in a garment factory, is that my parents were, when I was growing up, their third child was a garment factory. And what they were doing at that time was trying to set up their own business in Jaipur. They'd moved from Delhi to Jaipur, and they'd moved from a metropolitan city to a more suburban area because they wanted their family to have a richer life experience, closer to nature kind of an experience. And in that, they had also been working, like my mom had been working as a psychology professor in a university in Delhi, and my father had been working at an export house in Delhi as a manager. So when they moved to Jaipur, they wanted to start something of their own. They had a few friends outside of India who were designers, and both of them somehow really also connected with textiles, my father being a textile engineer and kind of having a deeper understanding of the industry. So what they started with was sourcing old saris and converting old saris into bags. And that this is maybe about 20 years ago, they were already upcycling. And that kind of catapulted and grew into them building a small garment factory to support that business. And in that, multiple things came to light. One being that any process is going to cause a lot of waste. And that waste was always visible to me. So my mom would try and make something out of that waste, and she'd work with the women who were coming in the factory to do the QC to make something from waste, also as a way for them to have a additional income. And when she passed away, as a way of, I think, continuing a relationship with her, I started working with waste. But of course, research also showed how big a problem waste is when I started developing a climate anxiety and a sense of eco-anxiety. But the only way I found my way around through that anxiety was working with waste, and that real that the fact that when you're upcycling waste, it does save CO2 from entering the atmosphere. That just meant that there's a relationship there. So yeah. Long answer, Matthew, to your short question.
Never a long answer. I think obviously we've been talking for 2 hours now as well, but I think everyone's just sort of taking in the information because there's so much that we're kind of speaking about, but your process is so developed and it's so fascinating, like especially your website. How do people get in contact with you?
I'll leave my email address on the chat, and yeah, the website is always there if people want to see work in a better light. I'm sorry I didn't present slides because like my perception of trash talk is very different. So yeah.
Yeah, trash talking, no cameras, microphones, chatting from your studio. Yes, so thank you so much, Bhaavya. Yeah, get in touch with Bhaavya, check out her work, everything with Iro, and we're looking for members in Jaipur. So if you know anybody who's in Jaipur in India, or in India in general,
Yes.
yes. Thank you so much. Fab, you've got the email there as well. Brilliant. Thank you so much, Bhaavya.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
And last but not least, we have Chiara. Chiara, are you here?
Yeah, hi.
Hello.
Everyone. Hi. Do I need to share myself the...
Don't worry, I'll do it right now.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
All right, fabulous. Thank you very much. Well, first of all, thank you. It's like great and sort of has been very inspiring to be listening to everyone contributions. Yeah, so I'm a designer and researcher. I'm also doing a PhD at the Material Science Research Center. I've been trained in fashion design, fashion with knitwear, and been exposed to the sort of twisted fashion world. But today I want to talk about what I so far believe is my most earth-friendly project. So this is a sort of a pet project that started and almost ended with the end of the pandemics. And basically, having been living in the UK for quite a while, I have become quite addicted to eating porridge. And and I also like to experiment a lot with my food. And this resulted in finding this material, which I thought is very interesting. Basically, at the end of my breakfast, I noticed there was a sort of a film remaining on the pan. And I thought maybe if in the next slide we can see, yeah. So and I thought, oh, what it could happen if I let it dry, and yeah, the outcome was this very fragile material, but in my opinion, extremely beautiful. And the color were basically given by what I would mix with the porridge. So everything would be 100% compostable, eatable, and it wouldn't pollute in any way the world, and probably would just be compostable. So I start experimenting with different shapes. So in the next slide, we can see some shapes. And I realized that the most beautiful outcome was when the light was behind, because the sort of translucent effect that the material had. So in the next slide, we can see some of the potential outcomes. So they use potential application to use this material as a like a light decoration. However, I will start questioning also, why am I putting something, why am I creating something that at the end of the day is also has a commercial application, that it didn't feel right to look at this project as something that has a real actual application, a commercial application that probably would have compromised the sort of the sort of biodegradability and ephemeral properties of this material. So it became, and it just stayed as a sort of a pet project, but I think there is some beauty that is very inspiring in this. Yes, so that's in a nutshell what I just wanted to present for today, which is Earth Day. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Chiara. It's so interesting to hear you speak about this project as well. I've seen the images before, but to think that it came from something so simple as just eating breakfast, it's like, you know, an idea can come from anywhere. One of our members in Trash Talk, Paul, he speaks about this idea of the fact that we're creatives and everything we do and everything we see is through creative eyes, even a conversation or something as simple as eating breakfast, which really goes to show when you talk about this project and how it sort of happened from something so simple. Do you want to explain a little bit about your other processes or your practices or where you might want to take this further?
Yeah, I don't know if it remains with a question mark. How can I take it further without sort of exploiting the material? So I thought maybe could have an interesting outcome in creating some community breakfast club, but the process of like the drying time for this material is quite long. So between like the day of the breakfast and the day that the material is kind of dry, it takes about 2 or 3 days, depends. And this is a bit like, is a sort of a limit in creating a community project where perhaps we could have breakfast together and everybody is doing something with at the end of the breakfast with this material, because it would need like a sort of continuity 3 days. So there are some logistics behind that. Yeah, it needs to be sort of investigated more. But I think there are different potential way that this project could develop.
No, 1000%. And Inez has just said, this is amazing. Love the anti-exploitation small scale ethics. I couldn't agree more. I think definitely that, like you just mentioned, that idea of not forcing the material to do something that you don't want it to do, or compromising its biodegradability, or the commercial element, but really just kind of listening to the material and kind of the process and the happy accident that might have happened, and sort of seeing where that leads you. Is that like a process that you do a lot? Do you is it through exploring materials first? Could they come in different ways?
Yes, so I obviously I really like tinkering and I have a sort of material-driven approach. I've done it in the past. I've done it with this project. Is currently not my daily practice, I would say, but is a sort of a frame of mind.
And how can people get in contact with you, Chiara, or look at your work?
I can write my email in the chat, but there is my Instagram here. You can just direct message me and or drop me an email. I'll just write the email here.
No, Chiara's work is so stunning and so clever. It's so interesting to like read about it and learn about what you're about and your practice, and so grateful that you came today. Thank you for putting that in there. So grateful that you came to speak about your work today.
Thank you very much. It was great. Thank you for organizing this. It was very inspiring.
Of course, thank you so much. Okay, thank you so much everyone for coming today. It's been extremely inspirational. I'm very proud. Is that a word I can say? I feel very proud of everyone who spoke today and all the members and organizations that part of our community. We would also love to invite all of you here to kind of join our community and be part of the space, be part of the movement, be part of Trash Club. Trash Club, we're all over the world. We're primarily an online organization. So we do things like the panel discussions, workshops, and we also instated Trash Club hubs last year, which is like opportunities for Trash Club members around the world to join up and meet and create smaller hubs of Trash Club. In London, we have a hub, and there's some others around the world, and it's on the website as well. There's 8 of them at the moment, I think. But yeah, please stay in touch. We'll be doing more of these sort of sessions. We do mentoring sessions. We have a podcast that you should all go listen to if you found this interesting today. Behind the Bins podcast. You can follow it on YouTube or Spotify, Apple Music, and that's all via the website. So thank you so much, and we hope to stay in contact and see you soon. Happy Earth Day, everyone.
Thank you. Bye. Thank you, everybody.